preserving the vast customs of a vibrant cultural heritage.
Welcome to In Conversation. We come to you from Washington, D.C. My name is Aastha Verma.
And my name is Viraj Gandhi.
Viraj, it's great to have you back on the show, but it seems like every time we get together, there's like a foot of snow outside.
I know. I think there's some type of weather chemistry going on here.
You know, it's kind of funny. We were talking about this earlier, but both of us got stuck. Stuck is probably not the right word with our families over the weekend. And it was an interesting experience, you know, when you go back home and you're with your family again for an extended period of time. I don't know about you, but I go back to being 15 years old when I go back home.
I do the same. I expect everything to be done for me. Laundry, cooking, food, but it feels good. It's like an escape. It's an escape.
I know my mom loves to cook up a storm, so that's what we did when the weather was bad. But of course in news, the big news this week was Senator Bayh's announcement, Evan Bayh's announcement, that he will not be running for re-election come the next election cycle. I mean, that is big news. Most of us might remember Senator Bayh from being one of the choices, one of the ones under consideration to be Barack Obama's running mate. It was Joe Biden, of course, was selected, but for a while, a lot of people thought it might be Senator Evan Bayh, and of course, he looks quite presidential.
He does. And he carries himself that way.
Carries himself very well that way, and you have to wonder what it was that made him decide to do this.
Well, it's interesting. I do think it's a little bit of a shock, but is it because he may not agree with the direction that Obama's going in? I know there's been a lot of controversy with both the Democrats and the Republicans as to the direction that Obama's going in healthcare, in his military approach, in even the financial sector of the economy, and how to rebuild that.
Well, it is interesting. He listed his reason for leaving as being partisanship in Congress. But let's face it, I mean, there's 99 other senators there who are trying to get the job done, and he's going to leave because of too much partisanship. I didn't find that to be a very satisfying reason, but I think you're onto something. Maybe this is an early departure from President Obama and his tactics, which to me signals something really underlying a little bit more significant than that, and that is fractures within the Democratic Party itself, which is a shame because you have an opportunity for the Democrats here to really try to guide the nation and to do it at a time when the nation is in trouble. But unfortunately, instead of banding together, you're beginning to see fractures and you're beginning to see disagreement within the party itself, which only serves the Republican base, especially the conservative base, which is using people like Sarah Palin to come back out with messages to try to stir up the sentiment, stir up the party.
Well, I think the fracture started with the loss of the seat, the Ted Kennedy seat in Massachusetts. I mean, that was a huge loss and a huge fracture for the Democratic Party. But let me take the other approach. So a lot of people may think, like yourself, that he's giving up and that, you know, partisanship is a weak excuse. But what if he feels that he has done everything that he can possibly do and he's kind of plateaued and he's at a point now where he has to leave to let somebody else come in to finish the job? And I know that may be a little too idealistic to think that way, but, you know, we've all been in jobs and in situations where we've just felt that you've plateaued and that you cannot give anything more.
I suppose, except that he is such a strong figure in the party that I would think, if anything, he could help to take that fracturedness and bring it back together, or be an outstanding leader that's in that party to help redefine the party itself, or to make them be cohesive. I think what's happening right now is you have Nancy Pelosi, you have Harry Reid, you have all these different party leaders, but none of whom seem to be well aligned with each other. So unfortunately, that only makes the Republican base feel like they have an opportunity, and they have been capitalizing on it.
Absolutely. So speaking about disappointments, the European Union must be very disappointed that now they have to deal with Greece as a failing, not economy, but as a failing country. For those of you that don't know and can't fathom the fact that not only is an industry within a country failing, this is the entire country that's actually failing.
How is that possible? I mean, what does it take to fail a country?
Right, so CNN actually had a great article on basically outlining what was wrong with Greece, and basically what they're saying is that they have years of spending that they're spending 12% more than they're actually bringing in. So their spending is 12% more than their GDP. The other piece that they talk about is they have not had any reform, any financial reform. So when you think about reform, a government or a country or even a company should look at changing its processes, changing the way they do things every now and again so that they can remain streamlined and remain efficient, which Greece has not done. They have not had any financial reform in the last 30 to 50 years.
I'm surprised by that because they have natural ports. They're on the Mediterranean. You would think that there would be at least a shipping industry there that's viable, to say the least. The other piece that comes to mind here is for years now, the dollar has been falling.
Right.
Has been falling not just against the Japanese yen. Of course, the Japanese economy itself is in trouble now, but it's falling against the EU, the euro. And so you have to wonder, will the euro and its position in the world, will it be affected because of this bailout, if you want to call it that?
It will. It will. So Germany, being the most powerful EU country, is looking at setting up firewalls so that a country like Greece within the European Union cannot affect other EU members. But no doubt that the EU, or the euro, will fall against the dollar, which is great for us. But when we look at this as a global economy, it's not good for us because overall the economy of the world is decreasing, not increasing. So I think, when you look at it from a myopic view, yes, it's very good for us because our dollar is going to gain some strength, but it's not good in the bigger picture.
I read this very insightful article in the New York Times about what China is doing to really buy up all the ports in its region. And this is fascinating, and the headline says it all. India worries as China builds ports in South Asia. And by South Asia, we're talking specifically Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. It's also looking at building railroad lines in Nepal. So you think about what it's doing. It's basically cornering the region in an effort to get its goods out there with access to ports and access to other means of getting it out to greater parts of the world. This is not necessarily a good thing for India, obviously, because as India sees it, it's what they call a string of pearls approach, which will eventually undermine India's preeminence and rise to an economic power in the world. And that's actually true. India has some natural influence in the area as well, especially with nations like Bangladesh and Myanmar and Nepal. They're bordering countries, of course. But at the end of the day, so is China. But where it sits in the Asian market, it really has access to the eastern ports. It doesn't necessarily have good access on the western side.
Which is where they're trying to expand to.
Which is where they're trying to expand to.
It's a modern-day Genghis Khan.
Well, it kind of is. I mean, and you think about how calculated they are being in doing this, because it's basically increasing its regional sphere of influence. And by becoming the biggest dominant player in Asia, they are basically saying
that market.
They're going to control that